All right. So, yeah, Gen X, we are the crapshoot. Some of us were groomed to be in a position out there, or groomed to be in an industry, a place in society, and even kind of like a free agent. And wherever they land is where they land. And so Gen X was the crapshoot. And obviously, I was someone that wasn't groomed for anything specific. So wherever I ended up, but it was only temporary. And I don't know if that was intentional. I think there are a lot of suggestions for those who were in these systems of programs to rear their kids a specific way, and some had a little bit of latitude to do what they needed to do, but also follow certain guidelines. And so that way, the system can then study everybody and figure out the background, the lifestyle, everything. And I'm sure they follow a lot of these experiments out there, and some end up, in a hail of BULETSs, and others just self-implode or become unalived. Others end up in different industries. I mean, luckily, I was only a little bit of a bad girl. Bad because juvenile hall, which for shoplifting a pair of pants is nothing. Okay. Luckily, my husband only had the child support bullshit that he dealt with, and a little bit of other stuff that was no big deal, and things got off his record. And yeah, he had stupid guy shit, but his bad boy background gave him a lot of smarts. Like, seriously, strategy. Okay? And so my bad girlness out there gave me strategy to survive corporate America, survive my peers, survive situations I probably would not have survived in if it wasn't for my background. So I'm looking back now on the life that I led, especially in the Bay Area, and without having some kind of Ivy League college or degree behind me. And that was pounded in my head all around me, through my family, even the people I interacted with. Oh, you don't have a degree? And you go and apply for a job, put your resume. Oh, you don't have a degree? Well, so all this stuff is like entry-level bullshit. But for me to get into the office, it was temping. The military was one way when I was in personnel. The other way was going into Kelly Services, all these different temp agencies that would have these modules that you train in. So if you didn't learn everything in whatever job I had in the military, then I would go and practice the different modules of Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and learn all those different applications that would then help me do my job. And so temping in so many different industries, walking into situations, homogenized situations, and always being the one that was outside looking in, wasn't the permanent person, I was the temp. But it was always temping for somebody that, well, either they developed a position because they had so much work and they had the money to develop a position that eventually I was phased out, or it was temping for someone who died or was on cancer leave. And that was one of the craziest things, was going into these big companies, and someone either, the guy that I was taking the place of, he died on the job. Like, he literally died on the job. Well, no, he died at home, but he was working for this company. But he didn't end up coming to work one day, and they went and found his body. This is in San Francisco, and that's how I was able to get that job. And I wasn't even, I was a temp for a minute, because I was going to see if I was going to be that executive assistant, and I didn't have enough skills. And then there was that, and then another lady be a receptionist, and she was on a cancer leave. Another lady in the life insurance company died, and so I took on her workload. I mean, it's crazy. And so you realize that the velvet coffin. See, you guys are working so hard, right? And you're working so hard, you're trying to have like this big life and making all your bills and all this superfluous shit that you really don't need, and you're killing yourself for it. And in this environment, people are dying at 50 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old, children. People at the Olympics are dying, dropping suddenly. You're not seeing any of the articles about the Olympics. This coach died, the player died. I mean, when did that happen? How many people have died, in the 2012 Olympics? Coaches and players? None. None. Everybody took their different, immunizations back then. It wasn't like that didn't stop, but what's changed is the climate. The climate has changed, made everything really aggressive. And so what you were expecting maybe 10 years from now is coming up sooner than you expected. So people are dying on the job. They're dying in the middle of the field. They're dying in their cars. This last weekend, there were so many accidents. I'm looking at the crime watch groups going like, holy shit, an accident after accident after accident after accident. Like, seriously, it's pretty insane what's going on. And so, yeah, corporate America is the velvet coffin. People are in the jail of their families trying to support all these mouths they have to feed because they couldn't look at what's going on today. They couldn't even look at tomorrow. Their family is completely fucking unaware. They're chasing love and sex and relationship and needing to fit in at the expense of themselves, their children. And so it's like a suffering. And then I finally was able to articulate what family is. I knew family was dangerous. I knew that Charles Manson was coming from a very particular place that people were like, oh, he's just messed up. He's an abused child. He was CIA, MK Ultra, which probably all of the above is true. But he also knew innately, because when you've suffered most of your life like Charles Manson did and saw violence, you also get genius and you can make connections. You've been around so many different types of people, and then also giving some kind of, glimpse of the future. And he was just like, oh my God, he saw the writing on the wall a long time ago, but he acted on his urges. He wanted to destroy those who were eventually going to destroy themselves in America and put their family through hell. But you can't do that. But he knew what was going to happen. He knew how deadly family is. And family was. He knew they are the 7 deadly sins. They are the cardinal sins. Why is that? Because you have family pride. I mean, let's just go through the 7 deadly sins for a second. And then you apply that to family, and then you'd be like, oh my God. What is it? Hidden in plain sight? Yeah. Oh, everyone else is sinful, but not me. I'm special. No, you're not. You're not fucking special. Family is the ultimate cardinal sin. They either kill you with kindness, hit you with hate, or love you to death. Family, children, and friends are the lessons never learned. They are typically ordered as pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've been in so many different families, even my own, and seen the pride. Oh, look at my pretty girls, my pretty boys. Look, they have a degree. Oh, look, they have a nice car. They have a nice house. They live in 90210. Oh, they have a great job. They're mixing in with celebrities. They're so special and so important, right? So there's the pride, the family pride, right? Then you have the greed. Oh gosh, have a lot of kids and money and social capital and whatever else that greed entails, okay? Then the lust. Of course, to have kids, you got to have lust, right? It's not immaculate conception. It's not like, they're doing it in vitro all the time. No, there's lust involved. Why else would you get with a guy, right? It's not just, oh, we look good on paper. Sometimes it's business arrangements, but there's got to be something involved. And if it is a business arrangement, an arranged marriage, and your parents trafficked you, that can't be good either, okay? And there's envy. Oh, I got to keep up with the Joneses. So someone has a nice car down the street. They have, a Tesla or something, for shits and giggles. And you only have a Honda Accord 79, and you're like envious of your neighbors who have a Tesla. So then there's envy. You're coveting your neighbor's things. And that's a corruption, but it's a corruption that's not going to be good for you. When you think about gluttony, hoarding everything. I'm not saying you eat too much food, so that's a whole different ballgame there. But gluttony, just hoarding shit you don't need, toy boxes overflowing with stuff, attics full of crap, basements full of crap, having to do garage sales every year because you keep buying your kids a bunch of shit that they don't ever use. It just sits somewhere. You buy it once, they play with it once, and then it's, oh, I'm bored, done. Gluttony. Wrath. Oh, the anger. People get drunk, high, whatever else. They get mad at their husbands or wives because they're not performing in a way they want them to perform, so the wrath comes out. And people go to blows. That's why there's domestic violence. That's why the holidays are probably the most tinderboxes. When family gets together and they're at each other's throats, it is wrathful. And people end up in jail or dead. And then sloth. People are like, okay, I give up. There's just too much going on. People give up. And they just shut down. Okay? And so the 7 deadly sins actually beget the 7 deadly sins. And that's in all families. Every single fucking family. I don't care what it is. And so family is the ultimate slavery system. When you're in it, you can't see it because the bars are the people you surround yourself with. And then it's like a velvet coffin, basically. It's a velvet coffin. I mean, yeah, you might have the trappings of wealth. You might have a nice bed. You might have a nice TV, nice cookware, right? And my husband and I were watching urban explorers that go into these abandoned mansions. Like John Gotti and his mansion and his property. And then some other 1,000-year-old mansion somewhere out there in France or Belgium, the Rothschild's mansion. And yeah, it's nice. It's a lot of upkeep. It's expensive to maintain, but it's nice. But when you walk into a house that's 10,000 square foot house and it's cold, it's all marble, gaudy taste. Some of them were mansions or houses of somebody who committed crimes against people. Taping sexual conquest, porn people, and then they get indicted for it, and then they just basically abandon the house and leave everything in the house. And so then these urban explorers find out the history of the house. They go in, find their way in, and just go and just look at what people were living with. Dishes and nice blankets and beds. See, all that shit's replaceable, and people collect that, but it's stuff that it's disposable. It's waste. And people collect that stuff and they suffer for it. Okay? And so it's a velvet coffin. Because the guy that decorated, he had all this money and he decorated his house. It was just such bad taste. Bad taste. It was like pink and gold and a skinny hallway. And it was just like, oh God. It had like one little turret of a castle in the middle, and then the house was like flanking on each side of that little turret. And it was just such bad taste. But yeah, when you have money, all that superfluous wealth, people just, they buy Chanel and they buy, all these Nike Air, Nike, all these shoes, like these designer stuff that's in the middle of nowhere. Waste, such waste. And so that's what people are slaving for, is the status and the name brands. And so it's a velvet coffin. It's a velvet coffin. I remember corporate America was referenced as the velvet coffin because people were born into a corporation. Their parents belonged to a corporation. And then they die at their desk. Or they don't end up coming into work one day and someone has to go and find what happened. Go find the body. And so when I'm replacing someone that died, basically, you're just like, God, what a legacy to follow, Is that where I'm going to end up one day? Is basically dead at home or dead at my desk? Great. But at that point, I was in my early 30s or 20s, late 20s, early 30s. And I'm like, that's not going to happen to me, whatever. To San Francisco, And so, so I remember tempering for a lady who died at her desk. That was a life insurance company in San Francisco. That was the ultimate velvet coffin. Actually, I wasn't tempting for her. I just took on her workload. I hate when they do this. Talk to text just scrambles my words, but whatever. Writing form letters to those who were beneficiaries of deceased people. I remember temping for a guy at Macy's West who never came into work because he died at home and no one knew where he was until they went and found his body. I remember temping for someone who was on a cancer leave or sick leave, and part of me hoped they would pass away so I get the job, I mean, that's cool, but that's kind of like the dog-eat-dog competitive world. Step on as many people as you can get ahead. Who cares if... Because this is what, you don't know these people. You just want the job. You want to survive. You have no connection to these people that you're temping for. People around you do. But, so they have to play that very carefully. So anyway, I mean, that's just cool, but that's reality. Someone's always waiting in the wings to take your place. You are replaceable to corporate America, but not to your family and not to yourself. Learn how to quit when you're ahead so you don't become another casualty of corporate America. Dying on the job or not too soon after you retire tells you that when you're brought into this world for what you're brought into this world for, because somebody couldn't control reproduction, and maybe need another body to do something that somebody else could do as well. Okay? And yeah, and the thing is, women who are constantly getting pregnant dilute their genome. So even if you had one kid and your kid has issues, you think that your daughter is going to be able to carry on the same traditions you did? I mean, they showed us in Multiplicity with Michael Keaton how many times he cloned himself, and then you see him breaking down. Like the latest clone was just goofy. No sense. That's what they're showing you in the movies, what happens when you keep reproducing on bodies in deficit. Even on bodies not in deficit. Because you don't know what kind of genetics they inherited. You don't know what deficiencies they hold. You don't really know anything. And even then, you couldn't force them to bring on life that they can't handle. You can't force people to live. You can't force people to take on life and pain and suffering and innovation. You can't do that. And so when they are in pain and suffering because of innovation and exposure to whatever, you have to systematically take away their life. What is that called? Remedies. Over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs, operations, machines stuck in you, sucking everything out, clearing the pipes, assuming they can get that far. So yeah, you have a kid, they can't handle the craziness of life and the pain of life, and so then they're systematically taken down notch by notch by notch until it doesn't matter if you were able to procreate on a body that's not in deficit. You made them in deficit by all the remedies, all the surgeries, all the diets, all the detoxes, all the lack of taking on information, innovation, whatever. Trying to follow in the footsteps of everyone behind you, yeah, you end up just like them. You want to follow in your parents' traditions? Well, go look what happened to grandma. She's in the morgue. She's done. You want to end up like them? Okay. And it's going to be sooner in this environment. So if tradition is so important to you, yeah, you'll end up dead, but sooner. And that's what's going on. And so, yeah, yesterday, so I blocked somebody yesterday. And the person had to text me. It was a very cryptic text. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta end this. I have to end this. I really do. So I faced the situation. I said, I can't have any more contact with the past. None. When everybody dies in that world, then maybe we can talk. The past has to be able to just leave itself. It needs to go. And if you're still attached, if someone in your world is still attached to people in the past, one of which they voluntarily decided to be that there, because they didn't have to be, but they voluntarily decided to be that, and they voluntarily decided to have a relationship with certain people of the past. They don't have to, they're not forced to, but they decide to, for whatever reason. Then you can't compete with the dead. The living cannot literally compete with the dead and the dying. And even then, so one layer of the past dies, right? And then there's another layer that's dying. What kind of future do you have with that next layer of past? That's what the J world people are faced with if they actually realize their hayflick limit. Is at some point, it's cutting ties with the past that's already pretty much gone. And the ones that are on their way out the door, you have to kind of lessen your interaction because you're competing with people who are dying. And I'm telling you, death is so lucrative. Death is so fun. Death is so beautiful. Death is so pleasurable. I'm serious. That's why people can't understand life. Because death is so pleasurable. Death is so extremely fun. Death is hormonal. And so then, so yesterday, finally, I said, when everybody passes away, give me a call. Because the only thing we have in common is the people that you're interacting with, that I've pretty much let go. There's nothing I can do for anyone. What kind of relationship would I have? Oh, how you doing? There's nothing. That, once I brought everything to surface, it's all done. Thank you for being who you were at the time that I needed who you were. And we're not friends. We might be sisters, brothers, mothers and fathers, daughters, and whatever. We're not friends. I don't want friends. Acquaintances. But acquaintances that know their boundaries. Acquaintances that potentially could stick around for longer than 80, 90 years. Right? And so I had to verbally close the freaking door. It's one thing to block people, but people don't get that. They'll still keep injecting themselves until you actually say the fucking words. And so learning how to speak is important, and be really clear on what you want. And so yeah, when everyone passed away in that world, then we can have a conversation. But I doubt we'll have anything to talk about, because the thing that would be the conversation is not around anymore. So then what would be? Oh, I'm going in for another surgery. Oh, my kids are growing up. Or somebody died. That was the old world. Talking about all of your illnesses and your sicknesses, or somebody's going to this college, or somebody's doing this, or somebody's doing that, or okay. In this world right now, it is so anybody's guess if you're going to survive the station that you're in. If you're not actively facing life and facing your demons and facing the demons that you embraced, you're not actively doing that, then you're just systematically taking away your pain and suffering, essentially taking away your life, and you're trying to have fun on the way out the door. And the system wants you to have fun on the way out the door, so that way you're not taking other people down with you. You're signing on the dotted line that you're going to have pleasure and paradise on your way out the door. Okay? And so there really is no real relationship with the past except to acknowledge it and thank the people that were in the past for what they were and how they were. But from this point forward, it's about the future. What is that? It's hard to say. My husband and I, again, we were hanging out. It was fun. He made me some awesome food. I asked him how he's doing, make sure he's doing okay. He's a dude. You know, if I wasn't, some men have buried many wives. Some women have buried many husbands. But really strong men out there probably bury a lot of wives, not because they killed them. Well, I mean, not like that, like murder them. But the wives that they hung out with weren't strong enough for their microbes, for their hormones. And so in this environment, when you get with people, you could be getting with someone who's just depleting, and then your exposure to them just depletes them faster. And so some men could be, so I will not be that person that he will have to bury. I have to be the one to be able to handle his testosterone, his energy, and survive him. And I hope he survives us exchanging microbes and sharing space. Okay? I hope so. I don't know. I have to pee. So I think I finally surpassed the first hay flick limit, according to Leonard Hayflick. And that last memory was my shoulder and all of that BS of online dating and ending up in situations that were pretty deadly, that luckily I survived. That women nowadays, when they go online dating, and even young girls, they don't survive their dates. And I wouldn't even be surprised if a situation arises and it was someone who was a plant there to go and teach these women a lesson. Why would you meet somebody on the internet? Go on a date and then who knows? Well, well, there was really I had no option later on. And then I had options, but not really. I had to risk it one more time. I mean, it was the third time's a charm, right? My husband's the last time. But I had enough life experience with cold calling to read people's personalities through their voice. But even then, I mean, that isn't always. But the gut knows. Even the gut back then was a little screwed up, but it wasn't that screwed up. But again, there's something to be said for experiences, okay? They will give you, if something is actually dangerous, your gut will tell you. If you've been in danger, you already have now the resources to understand what danger is. But there's still always more danger, and more lessons. If you survive them again, you become a genius. That's what I'm saying. You survive all the suffering out there, pain and suffering and people, and you don't die from your experiences. Yeah, you'll become a genius. And you read stuff and you learn stuff, you become a freaking genius. Maybe you might make mistakes and end up, answering for them and having some kind of contrition, and then you'll learn and you'll become a genius. Genius is learning from your mistakes and surviving them, and also doing things differently and building up your body at the same time and resting and realizing when to quit when you're ahead. Genius is knowing shit doesn't last forever. So you gotta learn how to change, your tone, your tune, everything. And so, so motherhood and all that. A woman who is constantly getting pregnant, even pregnant once in their lifetime, is ultimately suffering, is the ultimate suffering for everybody because they diluted their genome. Okay, so the third world is suffering, so is the first world. Now you know why artificial intelligence will take over the future and why robots will be what they be, because kids are falling apart. Kids are not surviving. Adults are falling apart. They're not surviving. They're going to be cyborged. So many people are living with implants and transplants because their bodies are depleting aggressively. All right? The system told you this. The system's changing. We're going from a disposable world to a sustainable world, but eventually, during that decline, people are going to lose their arms or lose their legs or lose, faculties. They're going to have to get it replaced, and they're still alive. They could still think. But imagine what an ALS person feels like when their brain can't even make the rest of their body function. They're stuck in a jail of not being able to move, but they have full cognition. Can you imagine what that's like for an ALS person? And so then that's why they're developing all these different cyborg type stuff. So that way your brain can then make your bodies move different ways. Because eventually other people's microbes, regardless if you think it's like gain of function in a lab, other people's microbes are extremely strong that you will also be exposed to. Okay? Especially during climate change. They'll take over and they can shut you down. They can shut down so many different parts of your body, and then your brain's going to have to find a way to get other parts of your body to function. And so that's why they're doing all these different cyborg stuff and testing to see how strong the brain can make a robot do stuff. So anyways, yeah. So now you know why artificial intelligence will take over and why people are going to be cyborged, robots of the future. People are depleting aggressively because of bodies in deficit being procreated on, out of existence. And so if you have enough body to you, and that's the thing, look at your blood types, look at everything that you're doing. If you have enough body to you, be what the system wants you to be, and then you can survive the system, then figure out, and if you can survive the system, then figure out how to develop another version of you that will save your own life and balance between serving the system and serving yourself. And so again, when I had that dream yesterday of being under fire of the Julie Juice world, and I was also watching that video of J. Edgar Hoover, and he was also, testifying or doing things, in court systems, answering to stuff, whatever. Well, I was also dreaming about stuff too, but I didn't have my purse, I didn't have my phone, and I left it somewhere, and then I was confronting people who were having issues with Julie Juice. This is my dream. And then it shifted over to then looking for my phone and my purse. I didn't find it until I found it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so to me, that was finally realizing my new identity. Once I closed the door to the old world and saw things for what it was. Really, with your family and friends, the only reason why you have a relationship is certain people in common, or you're partying together, or you're working on a project together. That's not going to last forever. Or you have some relative in common. That if it wasn't for that relative, you wouldn't even know each other. You wouldn't have anything in common. The only thing that would be in common is whatever you dealt with in the past, and that was pretty much it. When you don't have a future together and all you have is a past together, then you'll be going over the past. You'll be thrown back in the past. And so finally, when I closed the door to everything yesterday of the past, no more temptation, no more cryptic text, no more call me when they're dead and we'll see if we have a relationship. I don't know. I know it sounds cold, but what are you going to do? Then we'll see if we have something to talk about in the future. Most likely we won't, except for people are dead. That's the world today, right now. It's like you have to make a choice. And when you're straddling the dead world and the alive world, the as above, so below, that's difficult. You gotta have more alive people in your world than dead people in your world, or else you're gonna die with the people that are dying. That's the whole J world, is figuring out where you want to end up ultimately. And sometimes if you want to stay alive, you got to get rid of people who are dying around you so you can stay alive. And I don't have a whole lot of life for me where I can go and entertain people who are declining so rapidly in all the lifestyles. And so I have to even watch how often I interact with so many different people. And so knowing my limits is what's going to save me. I know my husband, he's not dying. He's not declining at the rate of some people who are declining. And so I can handle that situation. But you take him plus so many other people surrounding me telling me, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, you should do that. No. You can't compete with the dead world. There's no fucking way. You cannot compete with the dead world. They will take you down. And so realizing this and knowing the reality of the world that you live in, you might be able to find a way to transition. So be what the system wants you to be. And then if you have enough substance, find a way to convert yourself to life versus death. But you can't develop another version of yourself if you don't know how to assimilate to one aspect of the system. And that's saying those who are in ultimate resistance, and that's all the activists out there, yeah, forget it. You won't understand. And it's extremely hard to transition from one identity to another based upon the changes, the projected changes that they told you about. Some of you have had a lot of life in you, but there's so much resistance within you of the changes that even your resistance won't allow you to live. So they give you pleasure in paradise. They give you drugs. They give you animals. They give you family and friends and activism. They give you all the entertainment and the distractions. So yeah, the system is giving you so much. So that way, when you finally cannot handle the life that they gave you, there's a way to leave as humanely as possible. And so that is the issue. Some people can't get out of their identity because they're locked in. Okay? And so other people are not locked in. That's why they have the freedom to change and others don't. Which is why you don't want to ever paint yourself in a corner, because fighting to get out, you may not survive the fight. And people do paint themselves into a corner because in their minds, they have no room to grow and develop. They only have room to carry out what their first initial identity was and is, and maybe that right now they're getting a great return on their investment. Will my husband give up his boat and scale down his truck to something a bit more manageable as far as payments? No. He's getting a great return. He can make the money. He can go off do the work. He has friends. He likes to fish. This is not something he's going to give up, because that would require kind of knowing what the future is and what would happen, and figuring out that, okay, if he wants to survive this, then he would have to release the things that make him so happy. Cut down the things that make, and, you'd have to want to do that yourself. You can't make someone just say, okay, I quit now. But that's the whole thing with gambling. All right? People can gamble themselves into bankruptcy, and okay, they had fun, and maybe they look good on paper for a minute. But people go bankrupt. They don't quit when they're ahead. And I used to work at the casinos in Mississippi. I had a lot of fun playing craps and blackjack, pie gow, and baccarat, and whatever. I mean, it was so much fun to gamble, but you gotta learn how to quit when you're ahead, or you go bankrupt, you'd be bankrupt, you'd be giving all your paycheck and even your rent money to the casinos. Because maybe one day you're gonna get it big, hit it big. People play the lottery, people play the scratch-offs, the pull tabs, whatever. I mean, people make money, yeah, but I mean, how much money do they invest throughout their whole lifetime versus how much they won? And do people even pay attention to that? So, right now in this world, right now, it's gambling with all the pleasure in paradise and all the returns on the investment. And when you know where the future is going to go, because you're watching people dying next to you, dying all around you, that should be an indicator. Oh, the odds are not in my favor anymore. It's time to quit when I'm ahead. But you'd have to really be a future thinker. You'd have to really understand gambling. You have to really understand where the system's going, not resist it. But when you're in resistance, you're all involved in the politics and the religions and all the crazy science stuff. Yeah, you won't see the future for what it is. You'll think that your resistance is going to stop the future. No, the future is already here. Now you're just watching the evidence of the future. 50-year-olds dying suddenly in their sleep. And so, in other words, some people only have one life, while others might have a second chance at life, triggering the next Hayflick limit. But to earn your next Hayflick limit, which is, again, the discovery of Leonard Hayflick, Dr. Leonard Hayflick, when he discovered that the somatic cells, the immortal somatic cells, can only redouble itself 50 times over before it has to go to the next immortalized germline cell. So Henrietta Lacks proved that there is immortal germline cells. All germs are immortalized. And then they develop an infrastructure called somatic cells, and they can redouble itself and evolve and change. And that's your DNA and RNA and your uracil, which is the corruption to then allow you to change to something that is adaptable to a changing environment. And so that was the whole thing about corruption. You can have corruption, but is it going to work for you or against you? There's always corruption in everything, but what is the corruption for? For the future? Or are you just selfish and trying to use up all the resources so you're corrupting others so you can just take their resources and that's it? I mean, there's probably a combination of so many of those things, but then what's the probability that life that you're corrupting is going to really help humanity? Or are you going to give that life a choice that maybe you take the resources, but you're going to also give them a chance to survive? And that there's so many ways you can look at corruption. And even though I came from the absolute power corrupts absolutely, there's also a good corruption based upon the intention. And then who gets the choice to evolve in a way that saves themselves and also saves society. Okay, so when you look at the whole J. Edgar Hoover and all that corruption and the whole communism and chasing after with the witch hunting and using that as a reason to go and place the blame on Lee Harvey Oswald or anyone else, then, maybe there's another reason. So corruption can go so many layers, but maybe there's a good reason for it. And that's a hard concept for even myself to even wrap my mind around, because I've always looked at corruption as bad. But corruption can also be good. That's evolution. That's evolution. That's the uracil. That's your RNA. That's the whole switching over from one downline to another, like MLMs. Oh, well, this product won't work anymore. No more, doTERRA. So now we're going to do Young Living or something else, right? There's, oh gosh. So yeah, it's just figuring out and jockeying between downlines and immortalized germline cells and downlines of somatic cells and what the future you want it to be. And corruption is not always bad, as it can be good, but again, so triggering the next Hayflick limit. So in other words, some people only have one life, while others might have a second chance at life, triggering the next Hayflick limit. But to earn your next Hayflick limit, you're going to have to suffer and face every single demon you ever encountered and embraced. I'll tell you, this demon here, this is painful. It was bad. I suffered most of my life. Oh yeah, I earned my second chance at life. And that's why it's so hard to get people to understand that the whole MK Ultra, yeah, it can be devastating to people. When you watch it, like watching Bridgerton the last season, and that prince voluntarily getting smacked around by some dude because he had to build up a tolerance, build up a strength, build up a pressure. so he can develop the capacity. Oh yeah, that's that. Oh God, it's brutal to watch. It really is. You could, if you don't, it's not done right, you can turn someone into a serial killer. What do you mean done right? Well, the way my mother did it psychologically at home, and then I have to then deal with my peers who kicked my ass. I've had peers actually hit me. Even within the last 10, 15 years, I've had peers, men, hit me. Not when I was actually related to, like dating, but I've had men feel they have the right to hit me or kick me. Okay? And so when you can survive your peers hitting you and kicking you and harming you and whatever else, and even the women, the psychological bullshit, the women kicking your ass, the women, playing the alliance psychological games, if you can survive the women in the world, the men in the world, and even people that you're dating, and maybe make a few mistakes and own up to them and have some contrition and do something differently and and intend to understand the other arguments, holy shit. Yeah. That's a genius. That's building genius. But it's a suffering. But it has to be done in a way where you're consenting to it. So online dating is consenting to a suffering if you happen to get brutalized by online dating. Getting married to someone that you had no business getting married to and suffering through that. Well, you consented to it. When you broke the law, you end up in jail, getting beat up in jail and hurt in jail. And you're like, holy shit. Yeah. That's why you get a lot of criminal geniuses out there, right? But you consented it because you broke the law. You entered into a contract that you probably didn't read the fine print or understood who the hell you were ending up with. Even these kids are ending up being brutalized by girlfriends and boyfriends of the parents and even their peers. And they have to survive that. And you hope they don't turn into serial killers from that. But if they've already seen violence and they're playing video games that are really explicit and watching violence on their YouTube and TV, then oh gosh, it's bad. Then you get those that have vendettas against women and men. And so it's how do you get that across to people that the suffering is what makes a person. But it has to be done in the right way. And obviously you're seeing out there, these kids are not equipped to deal with the suffering. They get brutalized once, they don't fucking survive it, or they just end up, retaliating against everybody. Or they just die suddenly because they couldn't handle the suffering. They couldn't handle it. Or they end up hurting, the person that wronged them. Oh gosh, you broke up with me. And so you have a domestic violence situation. The guys can't handle getting pregnant. No girl's pregnant. They know what they're in for. Then it's like domestic violence. So you see what happens when we breed so many people who can't handle pain and suffering. And that's why you don't take developing life so lightly, but people do. Like, oh, look, I have the power to develop life. Yeah, okay, what are they going to turn into? What do I have to deal with now in the next 15, 20 years? Okay, so corruption. So even the reason for the witch hunts could be a cover for the actual reason. Corruption. So the whole J. Edgar Hoover, witch hunting, Lee Harvey Oswald looking for communism in his background. Well, yeah, that's a nice cover. Be like, oh, he's communist and he belonged to the Russians and this and that. But maybe there's another backstory behind that, another layer of a reason why they employed him. And so you can spend the rest of your life developing stories of why we've had all these different situations in the past, JFK, MLK, John Lennon, and even with the Trump and Reagan and all that. But at this point, it doesn't even matter. Just realize there's a bigger picture. When I'm watching, again, these Netflix series, they're trying to tell you they'll read between the lines. They're trying to better society, but you have to see the ugliness of what we have perpetuated, what we've accepted. Okay? And so that's why I completely understand where the system's going. I don't love watching anyone suffer. But if you can handle suffering, then do it. But if you can't handle suffering, then you have to get it treated. You have to get it treated if you can't handle it, because it's devastating watching anyone suffer. And that's what I learned. You can't save anyone, and you can't give life to people that don't want life. And so you can only humanely take them down layer by layer by layer. All right? And so corruption, okay, could work for you, against you, and for the company, or against the company, or for the country and against the country. And you have to figure out the messages they're sending out to all of us, despite those who are resisting. All right? And so they told you, we're going into a green sustainability world. No more disposability, which means they're going to lessen reproduction. They're going to lessen a lot of things. Yeah, you might have 15-minute cities. Maybe no more driving. Or you can't save other people. You can't give someone life who resists life. Systematic safe death is the only way to destroy someone humanely. And only the FDA can approve of those protocols. The system wants a more sustainable future. So all these recalls, it's because it's hot, it's aggressive, bacteria are growing faster, which then violates certain FDA standards. And so when you have more life in this area, like Staphylococcus, Listeria, or Salmonella, and it's being sold to people who can't handle life, you can't give people life and bacteria that they can't handle it. No different than, the inserts on the V's. That's fertility. They have to recall stuff. I could eat anything that's in the food supply that's been recalled. I could eat it. My body knows how to release the demons. It knows how to replicate life and deal with whatever and release demons. And I drink milk, and I eat meat, milk, cheese, and eggs, and fruits and vegetables. I rest. Corruption, yeah, it's bringing on a life that you have to assimilate to. So you can't save people. And so the system told you, we're heading into a more sustainable future. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, but what is the intention of the corruption? Because corruption is evolution. It's the uracil. It's the RNA. The government will always know what kind of safe corruption is appropriate because they're not in the interest of destroying even themselves. We're like, oh my God, they're doing the chemtrails. It's so deadly. But there's chemtrails over countries that people are saying that's who's doing it. The Illuminati. No. They must find a way to carry on the human race, even if you don't understand or know how to carry on your own life. And so even though they might be changing the weather, geoengineering, I'm not saying it's not true. Of course it's true. But you hold the corruption within. You hold the colony-forming units within. You hold all this diversity within. You've taken your pills, your powder, supplements, and detoxes, essentially stopping your body's way of releasing. You're pushing everything back in the body with all your creams, the steroid creams, the antibiotic creams, your magnesium, and all these different oils that people use for topicals. And so those hives that I had the last 3 years, I didn't push them back in the body. I let them express. I woke up this morning, no hives. No hives this morning. Usually the last few months, it was a lot of hives. A couple months ago, my husband would come home. I'd have hive here, a hive over here. These are all growths. They're coming to surface. My skin is the filter. And then my immune system is filtering out those microbes and doing a programmed cell death and then disintegrating them and then turning them into like ammonia or turning them into, seepage or turning them into something, and the body is releasing it. And then I'm taking showers at least a few times a day because my body's releasing that much. I have been living in the shower for the last 3 months. Literally living in the shower. Because the body is constantly releasing, and it's stinky. But it's the body releasing all those stinky sulfuric demons, okay? And you couldn't do what I'm doing if you had to account for a job, 9 to 5, or have to take care of kids. How often can you go take a shower when you have kids? They're doing whatever they're doing. Like, right? So that's the thing is if you can be on your own with someone who is not declining so rapidly that you have to be always around for them, you have it made. You have it freaking made. Okay? All I invest in is food, air conditioning, and water. And, communicating so I can get things, so my verbal diarrhea can release. And I already know how to release the demons down there. Okay? So the government will always know what kind of safe corruption is appropriate because they're not in the interest of destroying even themselves. So the chemtrails aren't poisonous. Oh, the barium and the strontium. You're hearing the people blame it on, like their heart palpitations, on the barium and the strontium. Potentially. Climate change. But you already hold the damage within, and the body, the immune system is activating, but you've always tried to stop the immune system activation. Oh God, high blood pressure, no more salt. So when you have someone that has low sodium diets, are really skinny, or they're gelatinous, because everything is floating in suspension. It's the salt that develops, the salting in develops the resistance, and also the substance. Salting out breaks away things that are not necessary, and the body releases. Purification. They do that with even all the microbes when you go and give your samples to the CDC. They go and purify your samples of DNA. Okay? But yeah, you hold the lack of tolerance. Because even if you went from, let's say, California, like I did, I went from California to Ohio. I was so sick when I was here. In October of 2010, I was so freaking sick. I was so sick that I had to cough in a freaking fetal position because I pulled muscles in my, diaphragm. Okay? I was so sick. And then when we went from Ohio down to Florida, another weather change, I got sick down there and I was in bed. My husband went down to went to the races over there, Daytona or something. And I was at home laying on a air mattress at the time, sick as a freaking dog. Because I went from one climate to another climate. And then you have to go and assimilate. But with all this climate change going on, people can't assimilate. Oh. They told you we're in climate change. So it took me 8 years to release somebody else's identity, or their version of my identity holding me captive. Okay, so I got my identity back, but a different one. And all my plumbing works. My husband knows not to do anything crazy. He doesn't have any more expectations. So a lot of these marriages, these guys have these crazy expectations from their girlfriends or wives. And since these wives and girlfriends think that's their duty as a wife or a girlfriend to do these crazy things in these relationships, they get destroyed. They literally get destroyed by their husbands. And even some of the wives expect that from their husbands, and so the husbands get destroyed by the wives. And you feel kind of bad for them because that's what they were taught to do, is basically sex is the most important. All types of sex is the most important. And you should never say no to your husband. It should be at least, 3 times a day, 5 times a day. Oh, God. No. There's a little bit, there's ways of which the person realizes that they can't destroy you for their own pleasure and paradise. They can't. That's why the system is teaching people self-gratification. But for men, they'll destroy themselves if they gratify too much. Women can find ways without hurting themselves. But I'll tell you, a lot of these relationships, these women are sacrificed. They are destroyed by their husbands. Not only are they forced to have children, but they're forced to do all these crazy things, 50 Shades of Grey stuff. And you feel sorry for these young girls going into these relationships, these marriages, trafficked by their parents, trafficked by the system. And their hormones are raging. Oh, God. And they end up, like 12-year-olds getting kidnapped by some 30-year-old because they're on their phone talking to some stranger. So some of these kids, that they survive it, and some of these kids, they end up missing, gone, done. Okay? And so someone my age, I hope you have somebody, if you're married, I hope that the person you're with is able to understand. But I don't know, man. Some men have these crazy expectations. They think they own their wives' bodies. They think they own their wife's uterus. And that's why men get a bad rap. Because they use their weapons for evil and not for good. That's too much evolution. That's too much destruction to every body part. And then force them to have a child on top of that. These poor women, but see, these women don't have anything else going on. They have nothing else going on. They can't survive on their own. So what do? They succumb to these, literally succumb to deadly situations, and then the sons and the daughters are taught the same way. But again, that's how the system depopulates, through traditions, through aggressive destruction called sexual reproduction. That was the depopulation agenda of the 1960s. That was the family, the Christian revival. And so I just feel for these young girls growing up. And maybe, I mean, you hope they survive, but if they do survive, they're going to be subjected to some horrible stuff. Because even that guy looks good on paper, and he might be a God-fearing man. You don't know what is lurking in his background. And so these girls are pawned off to strangers, literally. And they have to go and survive that. You feel bad for them. You really feel bad for them. I do. And so the whole diet suddenly could be a humane way to end the suffering of the future for these girls, because these girls don't have any future. They have no future. They really don't. When they go to these colleges, what are these colleges teaching them? To go and protest, to go and be resistant, to get radicalized, be in resistance, and then basically die in the war, cannon fodder. So even if you go to college, what are you being taught? What are you attaching yourself to? And if you go to a trade school and you go work at a gas station, what are you going to do for fun? Oh, get with the nearest guy that looks good on paper, really, maybe not. Get pregnant. And go through that until even that doesn't. Yeah, these girls don't have a future. You just feel bad. And so when the past dies, what kind of future is left? Once the past dies, some people may not have a future even with the next layer of the past. Sometimes the next layer of the past completes the prior layers of the past, and then that layer must be finished and complete. In your world, a family, last one standing. Literally, the phrase, last man standing, refers to the sole survivor of a battle when everybody else has fallen. So you're in like the Hunger Games, you're in Survivor, you're in all these different contests, Jeopardy, or that one where something, I forget. Oh my gosh. It was one where they had to answer all these questions and you can call your friend to answer the question. You get lifelines, right? I still don't remember the name of that. Okay, so that's what you're in. You might get a few lifelines here and there, a few, stays of execution, but eventually you use up all your lifelines, you're doing nothing left. So it's not your fault you're born into a corrupt society. If you choose to see the corruption and your part in it, maybe you can change your own outcome. So you can use that corruption for good, not for evil. But it's painful to look to how many sins you've committed against your own body, mind, and spirit. And so Disney. So now let me just clear the air around Disney. It's not evil. Disney was never evil. They were showing you what family does. They were showing you what family does to their daughters. You have so many kids, they're innocent, right? They're innocent and virginal. And then they get corrupted. But no one knows how to manage that corruption correctly. So then these kids turn into mean girls, mean boys, destroyers. And then they become the mean step-husbands, step-wives, mean, and so they turn it, so you see what happens. Turn someone like a Gaston and, Beauty and the Beast, some self-entitled male who'll go and conquer everything at the expense of everything. And he looks like a self-entitled male. He's the epitome of an alpha male, if you still believe in the alpha versus beta. And the Beast is like, look, he's out there, he had a spell cast upon him. And someone had to fall in love with his beastliness, the princess. So then we turn into the pretty prince, right? And so Disney is trying to tell you what we have developed in our families, in our children, and especially the girls. They're all brought up virginal, and then they get corrupted by somebody, and then they become a mean girl. They become a mean girl. And they become a mean stepmother, stepwife. They become a mean mother-in-law. So Disney was showing you. So the virginal girls be corrupted, turn into mean girls, and end up wicked witch of the east and west. And they become the evil stepmother. And then leveraging their power over everyone because they can. Disney was showing you family is the root of all suffering and corruption. Okay? Obviously, to have a family, you have to corrupt yourself. Okay. The bigger the family you have, the more corrupt you will be. Even the mafia showed you with the Godfather series. They showed you how brutal the family can be. Remember when that woman was beat up by her husband and then one of the Godfather was the second one? And then he had to go in and beat up that guy because his sister was beat up by her husband. It's brutal. Charles Manson also knew, and his family was showing you what misery family is. Family is the ultimate cardinal sin, 7 deadly sins, the 9 circles of hell. Fantasia before Fantasia 2000 was showing you the hybrid history of the Old Testament, New Testament, and Greek Roman gods. Go find Fantasia before 2000, the original one, and they go through a whole history of the beginning of Earth, according to that, and the dinosaurs, and then all the way up to then Revelations. What is it? The big Devil's Mountain. Yeah. Illusions. People get drunk with their illusions. I left everything. My gut told me how dangerous my society was and is, and so I left it all. I am married, but I left the rest of society. And so what is hell frozen over? It's rigor mortis. So the day after tomorrow is showing you rigor mortis. That is when hell freezes over. New York is like hell, right? It was the capitalism. It was the whole center of capitalism and slavery. Because those guys in the towers, right, were people, white-collar workers, who were sending orders off to different places to go and enslave somebody in third world countries. When you actually link the 2 towers of everybody in there and what they were doing, it was like the octopus arms were then inching their way out to third world countries, and then those are the factories linked to the 2 towers. I'm not saying it was right what would happen, whatever storyline you want to buy into, but Babylon, yeah, America we were developed to be Babylon. We were developed to enslave others. We were developed, that was the whole capitalism versus communism and all that. But you had to find a way of balance between the two while we were innovating. So we had to play the game to show people. And I don't know what J. Edgar Hoover knew when he knew it. I don't know really much of anything except for that we're being shown how cruel humanity can be, especially when they are developing so much life that really is not purposed and will suffer eventually and decline and be a destroyer. Okay, so hell frozen over is rigor mortis. The day after tomorrow was an allegory when the hell freezes over, because it will actually freeze over. Winter of your discontent. And so even though like, oh yeah, well, we know Victoria, Australia is going through their winter right now as we're going through our summer, it could be even more aggressive. Just look at the hurricane season coming up. It's going to be pretty aggressive. The water is heating up. Okay, right now we're going to have rain this whole week. You realize that Pigeon Forge, Dollywood, Tennessee, under massive amounts of water. Different areas are getting flooded out. Vegas, so much heat. Arizona, so much heat. California, so much heat. And homelessness. Stiff, cold, dead, the innermost 9th circle of hell, after treachery, inviting in microbes, and then using oncology and remedies and surgery on them, attacking them, not releasing them. So that is like a sin, getting a vaccine. You're bringing in life, and then you feel stuff, and you're taking garlic oil, or you're taking oncology, or you're taking herbs like, cannabis, to go and attack the life that you brought into your body. No different than luring somebody into your house and attacking them. That's what these predators do. They lure things in so they can attack them. People do that nicely, and their friends and family, they bring in people they don't really like, but they're feeling obligated because of package deals. And so you lure them in, and then people attack them. They do whatever, And so that is the ultimate sin. That's treachery. I mean, that's part of the 9 circles of hell, is treachery. Entertaining people that you resent. But then people feel all left out. Well, here's the thing. Bringing in a vaccine and then taking your herbs and extracts and alcohol. You're entertaining things that you're resenting. So the whole medical, holistic system, energy healing world is a system of treachery. Every single person out there that are giving you pills, power supplements, and everything, you're hanging out with them and they're giving you remedies so you can hang out with them. Yeah, that's inviting somebody in under false pretenses. It's different when you're born into it. Then you got to figure out how to correct the mistakes. But when you're voluntarily bringing in life, like a VACCINE, and then you're getting oncology, or you're starving things. Treachery. And so it starts out starving. So stiff, cold, dead, the innermost ninth circle of hell after treachery. Inviting in microbes and then using oncology remedies and surgery on them, attacking them, not releasing them. It starts out starving. The public health therapies trigger treachery in people. That's why people are changing. Oh yeah. Their attitudes change, everything changes. Parties and gatherings invite in microbes for you to attack with remedies and surgeries and medicine. Sin. Medicine is sin against the body. Because you invited these microbes in and now you're attacking them. Just like in the J world, when we're bringing up the immune system and activating it, and people are feeling stuff, and then they're taking garlic oil, colloidal silver, all of their different vitamin E oil or whatever, magnesium oil. They're like, oh, look, you can use this. Everyone's trading remedies back and forth. It was such an irony. It was crazy. It was an actual example of what we do in our society. We invite people into our world, then we attack them. That's why I'm like, you know what? If you're intruding into my world, like someone commented on my Facebook and I defend myself, I'm not attacking you. Because you're coming in. I didn't invite you in. You forced yourself in. When people text me, they force themselves in. When people email me, they force themselves in. And then they get mad at me attacking them. You invited me into your world. You forced yourself into it, forcing me to respond to you. And then you have the gall to feel like you're a victim. Well, that was my issue too. I went into troll pages. I went into websites or whatever, and it was all pissy. So I forced myself into a situation. They were saying what they were saying, and then I'm pissed off. Right? Well, reverse, when you invite people into your world and then you attack them, that's just as treacherous as inviting shit into your world and then wondering why it is you're being attacked. And so I don't really invite anyone in my world that I know that eventually I'm going to have an issue with. My husband and I, we figure some shit out. We have our separate corners. We have a nice rules of engagement. And it's taken 13 years to figure that out. But I don't want anyone injecting themselves in my world. And I'd invite people in my world that I had to eventually kick the fuck out because I'm tired of being attacked in my own house. Tired of being attacked anywhere. And that's in every situation out there when I would entertain people that weren't good for me. I've had to kick people out. I've had to kick myself out. Okay? So treachery is inviting shit into your world and attacking them, or inviting people into your world and attacking them. Yes, or going into worlds that you know are going to attack you, but you voluntarily injected yourself into something that wasn't good for you, and then bitching about it. Okay? And so that's when you have to be careful who you entertain and why. Because you could be entertaining them so you can attack them and take their resources, even in a nice way. Okay, and so sex, family, and friends, pets are the hell people are experiencing, inviting in guests and then attacking them. The top of the pyramid is when you can graduate from the bottom baser level instincts of survival. That is Maslow's ladder of self-actualization. Maslow's ladder of needs. Okay? And so, yeah, the whole, what is it called? Day After Tomorrow. And so the 7 deadly sins are the symptoms of the 7 deadly sins. The gold medal is worshiping the golden calf and sacrificing your life for it. And so there are people, even in the Hebrews world, that are all about the Bitcoin. And they're all about getting rich off Bitcoin and stuff. Or getting rich off of gold or silver. I'm like, well, isn't that what God was upset about? Was worshiping the golden calf, worshiping money and wealth? Worshiping greed? That must be a sin somewhere, even in the Hebrews world. But I don't know, man. There's probably different segments of the Hebrews or the Jews where some were worshiping the golden calf, and then Moses got pissed off, and threw down the tablets and then took that golden calf and melted it into molten. It was poured down the throats of some of the people that were like, idolaters, right? That's a sin, is idolatry. But that's the thing. Everyone has their spin on it. And that's also, was it the schisms? Schism, the offshoots of religion, so that way you can make your sin work for you. That's sinful, is justifying sin into a religion. Oh my God, I gotta pee. Crap. Yeah, so that is what they're talking about with sin too, is developing offshoot religions so you can justify you sinning against the world and yourself. That's some crazy stuff. Wow. That's why there's a million different religions and offshoots, because someone's like, well, I want to do this, this, and this. So I'll develop a religion that when this religion says you can't do this, well, this religion says you can. And I'll just be the head of the religion, and there you go. And so, wow. So, allopathic and holistic medicine is still a sin against the body, mind, and spirit. It's treachery, inviting things into your body and then destroying them with oncology remedies and surgery, or developing something in your body that will destroy you, such as a child or cancer. Treachery is inviting people into your world only to personally castigate them, like inviting guests to your house, only to use others to make fun of them. My Facebook is my boundary. I invite no one or tag anyone unless only to castigate them, okay? So if I tag somebody, it's because I'm being nice to them, polite, whatever. Or maybe I'm not trying to make them, maybe I'm trying to show them that it's okay to be adopted, that you might actually be the next amazing innovation. Not to hurt them, though sometimes I do cross boundaries and maybe do that, but not... I do teeter on being, well, Miss God, I'm going to teach this person a lesson and show them that it's okay to be adopted. I don't know, but she took it well. I probably won't do that again. I just want her to see she's amazing. So am I. Both adopted, okay? And so I don't tag you in to castigate anyone, okay? And even then, some of my good intentions can be misread, but some people who know me enough know that I don't have any bad intentions. So if you hate me but watch me, then you're treacherous. Which is why I stay with my husband and myself. I have no complaints about anyone in my life because I do not hold court entertaining people and resenting the people I entertain. I do not suffer at the hands of other people because I do not put myself in the hands of others. And if I do put myself in the hands of others, I make sure I survive that situation. But that's the thing. The more you put your hands more you put yourself in the hands of others, the more you're going to gamble with your life because you have no idea what people's intentions are and you can't control all situations. Okay, so it's developing psychological labels on the people in your life so you can handle living and working with them is treachery. All right, you have to see a therapist so you can work out your differences. That's treachery. Why is that? So you can make your relationship work? Why are you trying to make something work? What's the point? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. My husband and I, we've had our differences the last 13 years. Many times where I would wonder if he's going to stay with me because of the changes that I was going through. And I even felt like that one day he was going to walk out because I was going through major changes and I couldn't do certain things. And he was just like, when his life is built on a certain way and then it's not, then I had to really figure, I was scared he was going to walk out. But then maybe he realized that I was more than just, a body. That there's more to our relationship than just certain things. Okay? And yeah, but if I were to bring in a therapist to force a situation that couldn't really be forced, it's either you figure out a way to explain yourself. I know you can find a proxy to do that, but your therapist, you're getting somebody, you're using somebody else to inject themselves, and you don't really know what exactly. It could the therapist could be like, okay, you guys go your separate ways and just go get divorced. And then there you go. That's done. But I had to find a way to survive transitioning from what I was to something different. And then my husband had to figure out how to deal with that. And there was questions whether or not that was going to happen. Because I'll tell you, even the last couple months, since January, February, and I'm in bed, heart palpitations in bed, eating food, taking a billion showers, and just having to go to bed. Like last night was the first time in a while that I actually stayed up with him and watched what we were watching till like 9:30 at night. Usually I'm in the bed by 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock. Before that, asleep, snoring. No, I had more energy yesterday. But he was just only like, I mean, I didn't go hang out with people and they're just like, well, where's Jillian? And he's like, well, Jillian, people were wondering where you were. I'm like, dude, I need to be in bed. He's like, but our marriage. Well, yeah, I gotta fucking take care of myself. I don't know how long this sickness is gonna be. There is no way to know how long you have to heal from something of the past. There's no freaking way to know. And to tell people who have never had to really deal with any sickness, really, they don't have a lot of corruption within that they have to go and deal with, to get that across to someone who doesn't understand, oh my God, it's fucking hell. And you can't even give an answer. See, when you do the cures out there, right, that's when they're making the claims, the FDA goes through the double-blind studies to figure out if something that you're claiming is going to do something is going to happen in the time frame it does something, and also stick for a certain amount of time to even say that this is like a cure or a medicine. And so with actual, literal, organic healing, there is no time frame you can give somebody. Well, it'll take me a couple days. That's why working while you're healing is almost impossible. Because how do you give a time frame to your employer? You'd really have to be under some kind of influence to give them a time frame. Well, I'll be back on Monday. Maybe your body's ready to be back on Monday, but you have to give a time frame to people that you're accountable to. As I'm saying, you're going to have to pick and choose. If you want to survive, you're going to have to figure out, quit when you're ahead. So that way you don't have to give anyone a time frame. But me going boating with people or hanging out with people is not really necessary. But my health is 100% more important than social bullshit. And when you put your health and yourself first, so that way you know you can be there. See, the fact that I'm building myself up to be a whole person, so in case my husband does have to take a break sooner than we have to, I have enough substance to know what we can afford to live on. In case I have to work, part-time or take a major pay cut than what he's used to. And we can scale down everything. And then I can work for the city or work for some other place, whether it's at home or working out there. And he will stay home and stay safe and heal or do whatever the hell he does. But you can never tell anyone when you are completely 100% healed from something of the past 20 years ago. And that's what all these diseases are basically voices of the past. Your lupus, your fibromyalgia, your Parkinson's, your MS, your cancer are voices from the past saying, hey, you never healed properly. Now is the time to pay the fucking piper. And people don't. They get that shit cut out. They don't release the demons. They don't build themselves up. They starve themselves. They get everything cut out. They remedy themselves, and they're out there distracted again, under the influence, trying to, figure out pleasure in paradise until their body just can't handle it anymore. Okay? And so I'm not bringing in a therapist for us. We had to deal with it ourselves. We had to figure out how to have a life. So I'll tell you, the alternative, what's out there, is far worse than what he's getting from me. Because anyone he gets with outside of me, he's going to get cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders. He's going to get so much pleasure in paradise. He'll die from that. He's getting people who spend a bunch of money, spend all of his money. Oh yeah. I know what he's getting out there, which is why probably he stayed with me, because maybe he didn't know the future of what was going on, but he knew that he had better odds with me and having the life that he wants with the freedom that he has than someone else who's some fucking stranger or someone he knew from the past. that you know eventually people are declining so much, and they have a bunch of kids, and they have a bunch of pets, and that has its own drama. And so, yeah, you have to know your worth to even just sit with wondering whether or not a person's going to accept you and stay with you for who you are. You have to know your worth. If you don't know your worth, then, oh God, I don't know. But I couldn't compromise myself for somebody else. And that was something you can't force people to be with you. You have to really sell your worth to yourself and to everyone else. Okay? That is appropriate. If you must see a therapist so you can make your relationship work is treachery. The rapist, right? Someone else has injected themselves into your relationship. Family does this all the time. I mean all the time. No boundaries. Family and friends have no boundaries. None. And so when I was talking to this person the other day, I just felt all the old feelings of whatever because I was being reprimanded or admonished for like not being out there, not being with, for isolating myself. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to call you so you can reprimand me and admonish me for separating myself from something that's not good for me. I'm not fucking going there. You're not going to castigate me for protecting my fucking self. There's no fucking way. That's why family is done. Because family will castigate you for protecting yourself. Family will reprimand you for trying to protect yourself and save yourself. Most family does not give a shit about you individually. They only care about how you're going to help the family. And you become the sacrifice if it's necessary. And so family and friends have no boundaries. None. The people in politics, religion, science, dogmas have no boundaries with each other. None. I hate no one, I just observe. My only sin I can handle is being married, as there are activities which does cause corruption, which, okay, if you can survive the corruption, then you're okay. If you can't survive it, then, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that much corruption to your body. And so lessening the levels of sin against your own body, mind, and spirit takes a long time, if it's even possible for some. All of us were born into aggressive, treacherous, sinful ways of interacting with each other and justifying it. At some point, people will find their way out of it and others won't, and they will continue to castigate others for not taking a vaccine or taking a vaccine, for not voting a specific way or for voting a specific way. And when you invite those arguments into your world, castigating others, that is a major suffering and a hell, and of course, a major sin. Politics, religion, science, dogmatic principles develop aggressive sin and treachery and destruction in the people who circulate within those situations. And children don't survive the sins of the father and the mother. It's already happening. 2025 and right now is already aggressively deadly. And so proof people invite people in and commit treachery. The third is Ptolemy, for Ptolemy, son of Abbas, who is known for inviting Simon Maccabeus and his sons to dinner and then murdering them. This round is for hosts who betray their guests. Okay? They are punished more harshly because of the belief that having guests means entering into a voluntary relationship, and betraying a relationship willingly, and it is more despicable than betraying a relationship born into. Okay? And so when you're entering into a voluntary relationship and you're also hurting somebody because of that. See, when I used to call my mom because I thought that was my duty, and I also was feeling like, oh, I need to. And then so I would be the one to intrude into her world. I'd be calling her. She wasn't calling me. I was calling her. And then she said what she says, and I get so mad. I'd be like, oh my God, bah. She didn't say, well, you called me. You're the one that opened up this door. You called me. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But we end up hanging up on each other. I'm like, you know what? Now. I'm 50 years old. I'm the one that asked for all of her mother stuff. I called her. She didn't call me. I called her. Guess what somebody did the other day? They emailed me. They messaged me. They called me. Why are they doing that? I don't know. What do they want? I didn't call them. I was doing fine without them. But they called me and I bit. So when you're inviting people into your house, when you're inviting people into your world, when you're calling people and they give you responses that you don't like, why the fuck did you call them? You called them. You invited them. You had them. You went to their house. You went to their party. You went to their... And then you're upset how they treated you. Well, there you go. Then you don't call anybody. You don't go to any parties. You don't. Yeah. And it's not about how people treat you the way they treat you, but being sick from it and all the things that you're just like, nah. But see, with my husband, I choose to be married to him. And so we work out our differences. Or else we have no complaints. You can't complain about the person you're married to and about the people that you hang out with if you're voluntarily engaging in these situations. You can't bitch about the government if you're voluntarily living within the government guidelines or within the government parameters. Go live out there on the grid with no money, with no connection to the internet. If you hate the government so much, go live out there in the middle of nowhere with the clothes on your back, and even then, maybe not, maybe no clothes on your back, naked and afraid. If you hate the government so much, then go out there, live in the wilderness, naked and afraid. If you hate government that much. Because everything that you have is what the government gave you at one point or another. They gave you the means to make it. They gave you the means to develop it. They gave you the means to have it. And so yeah, J. Edgar Hoover, whatever, Squid of the Past, whatever. And so it's not your fault you're born into a society, into a corrupt society. If you choose to see the corruption and your part in it, maybe you can change your own outcome, but it is painful. Okay? And so hell frozen over. Yeah, okay, all right, I said everything. All right, so that's it. I've pretty much, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, now we're headed into, what is it? We're 7:29. Today is 7:11. 8. So yeah. Okay, 7:11, and then August 1st is coming up. And what was it, the crucifixion? What was it? No, it was the Last Supper was on a Thursday. And the crucifixion's on a Friday. And then resurrection's on a Sunday. Now, the reason why I'm even saying all of this allegory, not saying that I actually literally believe it happened, but that's all representation. It's all letting you know we're in some pretty crazy times. And people are sick right now. People are in pain. I hear all the sirens. It's going to be raining this whole week. This whole week it's going to be raining. So we're in the apocalypse. So if you can take some grain of what I'm coming from, some grain of truth of where I'm coming from, that corporate America is velvet coffin, quit when you're ahead. Do you think you have what it takes to regain another lifeline? Surpass the hayflick limit? If you really hate the government, then go live out there in the middle of nowhere with no food. Well, with food, you'll find it, but no clothes and no protection. Just naked and afraid. I challenge anyone who hates government that much to go live out there in the middle of nowhere with nothing that your society gave you, your government. There's corruption for good and there's corruption for evil, and that's all relative to how you want to look at it. So I hope you choose correctly for yourself. All right, bye.